Greetings, students. Welcome to Hinduism. It's going to be taught at the University of Houston in the spring of 2024. This is one of my favorite classes to teach. My expertise is Hinduism and the religions of South Asia, so it is my delight to be delivering this class to y'all. Now, you'll notice as the videos start and begin working through the modules that the background's different. I originally recorded these videos when I had a little bit less gray hair at my apartment in Denver. Right now, I am at my apartment in Cambridge, where I'm working as a research associate at Harvard on a new project that catalogs and represents transcendent and transcendental religious experiences. And hopefully that will bear fruition and be published online as a digital resource in 2026, but that's what I'm working on right now. However, that doesn't get away from our task. Our task at hand is to go on a journey. We're going to learn about Hinduism. Now, could I tell you absolutely everything about Hinduism? Well, as you're going to see in the first week, that's impossible. Hinduism is, in fact, kind of impossible to define. Thinking about Hinduism is like thinking about India. India itself is not as much a country as a universe. It's a whole constellation of incredibly intricate, related, and sometimes not so related cultures. Just like Hinduism is so many practices, aspects, beliefs, and way of lives are kind of unified into this notion of Hindu-ness. In fact, when we look into Hinduism, even the term Hinduism didn't exist until there was the sort of connection with the Persians when they showed up, and the notion of referring to people of India and practitioners of what we call Hinduism as Hindus is really relatively recent. The term Hindu doesn't show up in any of the texts that we are going to be reading in this course. We'll be reading them in translation, of course. I mean, arguably, the word Hindu isn't even really a Sanskrit word. It's traces back to someone who took the word Sindhu for people who lived in the West in the Sind Valley, and Sindhu was turned into Hindu by the Persians. But I believe, and maybe I'm outmoded on this, that we should read through the syllabus on the first day. Now, why do I believe that? That way you've heard it, that way I've said it, and I feel that the syllabus is an agreement between you and I. And my goal is to be on your side. My goal is for you to be successful in this class. And I want to do everything I can for you to be successful in this class. However, we have a syllabus, and that sets out what the class is going to be. So it's up to you and I to fulfill the goals set out in the syllabus. So let's look at that syllabus. And I will state once again, before we start off, well, I haven't said it yet, this will be an asynchronous class. It will be entirely online. You'll not be asked to do any group work, to go on field trips, to go anywhere. It's you and your computer and you interacting with the other students in the class. So that's what this course is. And there will be a lot of lectures and there'll be a lot of activities. And I hear from many students that the lectures are actually pretty good, that they like them, that they do tend to like them. So I hope that you will enjoy the lectures. I hope that you can embrace edutainment, education, entertainment as much as possible. So let's look at that syllabus together. All right, here it comes. Okay. This is our glorious syllabus. Right here. Oh, all the way to the top. All right, this is Introduction to Hinduism, Religious Studies 2340. I am Dr. Ulrey. I would like you to call me Dr. Ulrey. Why do I want you to call me Dr. Ulrey? Well, sure, I've got a PhD, but who cares? I don't really care if people call me doctor or not. But I've been around the academy long enough that I have met women and people of color who people instinctively call them by their first names when they don't want to be, when they want to be known as professor or doctor. So in solidarity with women and people of color, I insist that you call me doctor or you call me professor. And you should do that with all of your doctors or your professors. You should do that unless they tell you to use their first name. to just go in and start using their first name will rankle some of them. It doesn't really bother me, but get in the habit, call your professor, professor. Call me Dr. Ulrich. All right. You can use my first name when after the class. If we're friends after the class, you can use my first name. It's no problem. I don't mind. All right. So our classes are going to go live Tuesdays and Thursdays. So think of it this way. You have a class Tuesday and you have a class Thursday, just like a normal class. You'll log on, you'll have class. The deadlines will be Friday night and Sunday night. I stagger these. That way, everybody isn't trying to get everything done on Sunday. I do this because when I've done it otherwise and had everything due on one day, a lot of the students' materials felt rushed. So I'm forcing you to string out your work over the week and break it up into smaller chunks. Usually, I will be able to get all of the course content up on Sunday, but the Sunday before the class. But just pretend like on Tuesdays and Thursdays you have a class. Now, I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and so I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So if you contact me, remember I'm a couple of hours behind you or ahead of you. I'm not so good at time zones. All right. I am Aaron Michael Ulrich. I'll be teaching remotely, so I don't have an office. I'm not going to have office hours, but I'm really easy to get a hold of. You can contact me via email and we can set up a Zoom call or phone call and I'll work you into my schedule. I don't set up set times, but I make plenty of time for students whenever they need me. All right, how do you contact me? Use my UH email listed above. I check email for a 1-hour period daily. Compose your emails in formal English and strive toward professionalism in all correspondence with me and other students. An undergraduate degree is an exercise in professionalization. And I'll say this a couple times across the course. I want you to practice speaking in a formal way, writing in a formal way, because we are learning to be professionals and we are learning to, and I'm trying to model to some degree, despite my goofiness, trying to model ways of being professionals in the world. And having a college degree does give you an element of professional status. So live up to it. All right, our course description. There are 1.61 billion Hindus in the world. That's over 15% of the global population, most of whom live in South Asia and live in the Indian, most of whom are South Asian, and live in the Indian subcontinent, i.e. in South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka or Ceylon. But what is Hinduism? Answers abound. Those many answers suggest Hinduism is no unified entity. Straightforward definitions are impossible. Hinduism has been declared and defined in many ways. The original religion of India, a spiritual path, a perfectly balanced way of life, a philosophical psychology, worship of Hindu gods, the path to liberation, a method for generating personal prosperity, rituals for good luck and warding off the inauspicious, caste and life stages, varnashrama dharma, the philosophy of yoga, temple actions, family ideology, and more. Privileging any one of these definitions, and we'll encounter all of them in this class, has profound implications. The word Hindu is in fact pretty recent. It's not found in scriptures. Hindutva, or Hinduness, is a term that Hindu nationalists, those who believe Hinduism should be the official religion of India, use to designate their religion and denigrate others, specifically Islam. But this term Hindutva only gained popularity about 120 years ago. Westerners, especially colonialists, those Europeans who established colonies in South Asia, including the British, who ruled India for many years, and we'll talk about that, have used the term Hindu to identify any resident of the Indian subcontinent, regardless of their declared religious identity. Hinduism cannot be separated from Indic culture or India. I remember when I was first taking my first Hinduism course when I was in college, it inspired me to dedicate my life to this. Someone asked my teacher, Dr. Grimes, why India? Why are we always talking about India so much? And he looked at the person and said, well, you know, that's like, if we're studying gold, why study Fort Knox? You study Fort Knox, which is the National Gold Repository for the United States. It's in Kentucky. You study Fort Knox because the gold is there. So if we're looking for gold, we go to Fort Knox. If you're looking for Hinduism, you go to India. That's where all the gold is. Even when Hinduism is practiced outside of South Asia, such as in the Houston area, which has a vibrant and diverse and one of the most rollicking and diverse bodies of Hindus in the United States, possibly one of the most diverse Hindu places in the world outside of India. Temples are established using geographical analogs to South Asia. Practices are directly connected to the manner performed in South Asia. Astrological timing of rituals is even connected to the South Asian skies, not to the Houston skies. Hinduism is South Asian, and Hindus are South Asian. Since India is the most dominant and largest South Asian country, most of the course will focus on that country. Yet, Indian culture and Hinduism are transnational. Yoga studios are found in every strip mall. Talk of Tantra spreads on the internet. Hindu gods are found on t-shirts. Hindu words suffuse the English language like guru or pundit or pajama. Bollywood rivals Hollywood. High tech, high finance, India touches every aspect of the global economy. And honestly, I liked the Bollywood before it was more like Hollywood. I really like 70s and 80s Bollywood films more than anything. 60s ones too. That said, 70, what did I say? Yes. High tech, high finance India touches every aspect of the global economy. That said, 70% of the Indian population lives in rural areas where very old traditions and local cultures persist alongside new media and telecommunications environments. The majority of our class will focus on the past, the older, the pre-modern, the traditional world. But the later part of the class, the latter modules, will explore contemporary South Asia and worldwide Hindu phenomena. This course has 2 sections, I sort of just outlined above. History, philosophy, and literature in pre-modern South Asia. This will be diachronic. Diachronic means structured according to a historical timeline. Advancing cultural shifts in Hindu religions correlated with social movements over time in South Asian pre-colonial history. 2, the second part. Thematic ethnography of Hinduism, using a syncretic method. Syncretic is the opposite of diachronic. Syncretic means you're looking at the phenomenon all together and trying to understand it, not setting it on a timeline. We will use a syncretic method to explore Hindu religion as a multifaceted phenomenon. Key ethnographic themes include death rituals, possession, pilgrimage, temple innovations, Hindu nationalism, and gurus, i.e. charismatic Hindu teacher leaders. We will focus primarily on pre-modern South Asia, but conclude by examining the modern and contemporary, especially noting pre-modern, modern, and postmodern contiguities, where they all come together. We'll try to understand the details and implications of 4,000 years of cultures in just 16 weeks. No small task indeed. This course is listed as religious studies, but it is informed by multiple disciplines: history of religions and religious studies, Indology, anthropology, history, folklore, literary studies, and sociology. Disciplinary overlap characterizes our masala class. Masala actually comes from the Sanskrit word mishra, which means mixed. It is mixed up and spicy, masaledar, something for everyone. The context geography is South Asia, including contemporary India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, drawing upon global and international studies perspectives. This is a religious studies course, not a religion course. We'll focus on what people do, not what people think. Scriptures are studied not to establish truth or insights into our own being, but to establish textual influence on culture and ritual. Ultimately, there is no singular Hinduism. There is no Hinduism as a historical entity or as a narrative realizing itself through time. There are wild and exciting religions fomenting magnificent diversity over the multiple eras in geography. But there is no one Hinduism. There are Hinduisms, no Hinduism. Objectives: students will deconstruct the term Hinduism, recognizing diversity and difference in Hindu traditions, connect Hinduism to South Asian context, geography, and history, evaluate disciplines and their influence on the study of Hinduism, especially religious studies, anthropology, literary theory, sociology, Indology, and folklore. Students will develop critical thinking skills and effective rhetoric for the study of religion and Hinduism. You'll read with a purpose, identify topics, articulate theses, evaluate evidence and sources, apply critical research skills for traditional, print, and online sources, and structure writing using intro, body, conclusion structures. Students will write with power. Students will be conversant in Hindu narratives, especially the Mahabharata, to the point that students can engage insider Hindus in the didactic storytelling traditions. This tends to be the favorite part of everybody in class. We're going to do like 3 weeks on the Mahabharata, and we are going to read through all of it. If you don't know what the Mahabharata is, in translation, it is the greatest story ever told. It's said to be the equivalent of the Iliad and the Odyssey, but if you put those together and multiply it times 10, it's still not as long as the Mahabharata, and the plot is nowhere near as intricate. It is quite possibly I just said it's the greatest story ever told, but it's the story I've thought about more than any other story in my life. And I can say that after a lot of time I've spent with the Mahabharata, it's given me quite a bit. And the other cool thing is, after we go through the Mahabharata, you are going to be able to turn to any Hindu you meet, pretty much any Indian you meet, because every Indian will know the story of the Mahabharata, and you'll have something to talk to them about. If you get talking about the Mahabharata with any Indian, you're going to have a great time. And for those of you who may come from Hindu families, you are going to have so much to talk to your uncles and aunties about, and you're going to school them. You're going to school them. You're going to be the one. It's going to tell them what's really up. It's going to be great. Okay, so we're going to establish a clear vocabulary for describing Hinduism, including terms in Sanskrit and other Indic languages. Students will articulate theory themes such as polytheism, religion on the ground, literary versus vernacular, pragmatic ritual technologies, magic. My specialty is black magic in medieval India. The effects, and we'll talk about what that is. The effects of colonialism, religion and modernity, and so on. Explore living religious traditions depicted in practices, texts, sites, and media artifacts. Identify Hinduism in contemporary contexts and demonstrate continuities with and disruptions from pre-modern Hinduism. Also, complicate the master narratives and political implications of Hindu nationalism. Finally, identify Hindu connections to the contemporary American world, including neo-Hinduism, yoga, tantra, all the deities and so forth. All right, you are going to have 3 course books. One is Wendy Doniger's The Hindu, an Alternative History. Next is Narasimha Chakravarti's The Mahabharata, an English version based on select sources. Buy those online. They're cheaper. They're way cheaper. And I continue to struggle with the library or with the bookstore at UH. So get those online. All right, the one you'll need to get right away is Wendy Doniger's The Hindus, an Alternative History. The interesting thing, well, maybe not the interesting thing, is Wendy Doniger is in fact the teacher of my teacher. My PhD advisor is David Gordon White. We'll look at some of his work in this. And then his teacher was Wendy Doniger. And I've met her several times. We've had lunch. She's really a delightful person and a firebrand of a human being, great thinker. So it's sort of like you're in what we call in Hinduism, the parampara, this, then that, the lineage. She is my guru's guru, my teacher's teacher. So in a way, it goes from her to him, to me, to you. So in a way, if I was considered your teacher, and I am your teacher of Hinduism, it goes me, David White, Wendy Doniger, to you. Okay. All right, there will be all sorts of stuff on Canvas, and you need to keep a working computer device. A laptop or desktop is preferable. Phones and tablets are not reliable for all the course tasks. Try as you may, they just aren't. Download the Canvas app. It works a little bit better on those devices, but it's a lot of students struggle when they try to do the assignments on their phones and on tablets. Now, should a movie or documentary be assigned that is not on YouTube, and we will have a Netflix movie to watch at one point, you're responsible for getting access via streaming services or from a pal. Assignments. Now, online courses require more student activities than in-person courses. This is a trade-off for class at your own pace, on your own terms, in your preferred location. Each lesson will contain readings, multimedia introductory materials, lectures, and group writing or discussions or individual short deliverables. You'll perform weekly assessments of the course and your performance each week. I call these exit tickets. So what's an exit ticket? At the end of every week, I'm going to ask you to assess the course and assess your performance in the course. You can write like 3 sentences. That's it. You get full points. This is also a chance for you to communicate with me and tell me what's going well, tell me what's not going well, or just tell me what's going on with you. If you had a tough week, let me know why. I'll take that into account as I'm grading and I'm thinking and I'm trying to guide you towards success. You will have a midterm presentation and a cumulative take-home written final. No other quizzes. For the midterm, you will create a lecture or discussion and a PowerPoint, and you will deliver it to a group of people, family, friends, church, sorority, coworkers, doesn't matter. And then you will turn in a written description of the presentation and turn in the PowerPoint to me. There will be no in-class tests or quizzes. I don't think they work online. I think they're kind of a waste of our time. Assessment is entirely based on completing course assignments. This class has a lot of writing, but not all of it is formal. And many of the assignments are creative. Students tend to kind of like these writing assignments. You'll see. Though we will be writing online, students should approach all assignments and communication with professor and the other students as if these were papers submitted in a class, handed in on paper. Use standard grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Do not use acronyms or internet text speech. All written work should be revised at least once. You should read it out loud and edit it from reading it out loud before you hit the submit button. Cut and paste should only be used for direct quotes, and any direct quote must be cited. We will address the use of AI in class. If you use AI more than just a bare consultation, then you have to cite it. You can use it, but you have to cite it. In principle, students should read every word that I assign. This is rarely possible in practice. I suggest you read with a purpose. Pre-read, skim each text, then read only the most relevant materials to the topic of the lecture, to the topic of the assignment. Read in details and take notes on important sources or sources that you find particularly interesting, especially if those are going to be relevant to your midterm presentation. Optional and recommended reading assignments are truly optional. You are not expected to or required to do them, but they are good for you. Pre-reading, group, and short writing assignments before doing the assigned reading may help you to focus your reading and note-taking. I tell students this in all of my classes. Before you do anything, before you watch the lecture, before you do the reading, before you do anything, read the assignments for the module first. So you can have those assignments in your head as you're watching them, as you're doing all the other work. Okay, supporting multimedia videos and news articles are meant to support the lecture, warming up students for lecture topics. Whenever possible, videos will show rituals and practices, portray religious sites, or support discussions or short assignments. Lectures will vary in length, but they will always have a PowerPoint, audio, and video. I'm an energetic speaker, and I hope you'll find the lectures enjoyable. Most students actually like them. Do not expect a monotone voice over a dreary PowerPoint. I'm committed to bringing my high-impact performances that I do in person in the lecture hall directly to your computer screen. And I will make sure that you always have the PowerPoint before you watch the lecture, because some of you like to follow along with PowerPoint and take notes on them. Now, discussion boards. Elephant in the room on these. Discussion boards are never really discussions in any online environment. They promise to simulate in-person discussions, but they don't. So think of the discussion boards as sort of like group writing projects. You'll be asked to write an original post and then expand upon other students' posts. I want you to refrain from sort of passing judgments in your expansions and your responses, sort of like, I think this is good, or proclaiming value. This is interesting. Your task when you write a response is to expand on posts, making further arguments, providing more data, or critiquing the arguments and asking further questions. Often you will be required to cite sources and bring in further research to support your posts and replies. Again, this is not really a discussion group, but group writing is what it is, where students will react and complicate and read other people's writing. The goal in our response is to add data and nuance to the assigned task. Each group assignment and each short writing assignment will have a rubric. I will always give you a rubric. And while these are group assignments, students will only be assessed on their own performance. Short writing assignments are mostly informal and creative, using multiple styles and genres. Tasks may include writing for a school newspaper, a letter to a friend, a movie pitch, anthropology field report, and so forth. You will also be asked to make videos and memes. We'll have a couple of meme projects. Often these assignments will require you to engage the contents and react from your own perspective or compare contents to your own experiences. These assignments require students to reprocess the material and do something with it. These assignments require students to reprocess the materials and do something with it. I say that twice. Each short writing assignment will have a rubric. Look, here's the thing. I've discovered in teaching over the years that students learn when they see things 3 or 4 times. You read it, you hear the lecture, and you take notes and whatnot, then you process it in some way or another in a discussion in class, and then you write about it and you do something with it in your writing. That way you'll learn it 4 times. And I shoot for that when I'm teaching. Now, community is hard to build online. Professors struggle when they cannot directly interact with students in person. You'll be assigned a weekly assessment of the class, which is called an exit ticket, where you can interact with me directly. These do not have a word count or a rubric. If you do them, you'll get points. I use these in several ways: to adjust course design, reading, and assignments, to nuance my assessment of student performance, and just to interact with students about the course and about student lives. And do feel free, be critical. Yeah, I mean, tell me if you thought one activity was bullshit, let me know. I take all feedback. All right, the tasks above cause students to process the material 4 times. First reading, then lecture, then group writing, and/or short writing. There are lots of chances to acquire points, and I am building in several extra credit options. I've never had a student who did all the work and didn't score a B or higher. The students that do not do well in the class are the students that don't do all the work. If you do the work, you will do well. It's just that easy. And the students, I've never had a bunch of you will fail, and it's because you did not do the work. But everybody that does all the work is going to do just fine in this class. So don't get behind. Grades and grading scale. You can look over that in general. Attendance and makeup policy. This is an asynchronous course, so attendance will not be tracked in a traditional manner by your presence being counted in the classroom. You're responsible for fulfilling the assigned tasks before deadlines. Unsubmitted work at the time of grading will be a 0. Don't get behind. It's hard to catch up. There's a lot in this class. If you keep up on it, it's not too hard. If you get behind, it's crushing. Now, communication with the professor is key. Extensions on assignments are decided on a case-to-case basis. Should a student contact me within 24 hours before the deadlines pass? No extension will be granted if the professor is contacted after the deadlines. Seriously, the minute you are under pressure and in danger of falling behind, contact me and we'll make a plan for success. I will work with you. Canvas tracks and reports to me the number of times you access the software and the time engaged in the software. Plagiarism. All assignments submitted must represent a student's own work. Plagiarism is a serious offense and will be dealt with accordingly. If you use words or ideas of others without proper citation of your source, you may be suspended or expelled from the university. I take this very seriously, and if I suspect that you have included any amount of material from uncredited sources, I will investigate vigorously. So just don't do it. I think the best way to keep sure you do not plagiarize is just don't copy and paste. Never copy and paste in any way in any of your assignments. Copy and paste misuse is at the root of almost all the inadvertent plagiarism I find. Do not mine internet sources for material in your assignments. I want you to use only the readings from the course. If you go out and look for other stuff, you'll often get it wrong. I give you all of the materials you need in the course readings to do the assignments. And if you're going out and looking for other stuff, you're most likely going to make a lot of errors, get bad sources. There's a lot of bad information about Hinduism on the internet. So do not mine internet sources for materials in your assignments. Just use the readings I assigned to answer the questions. Anytime you use information from a web page or an online source or a book, you must quote it directly and cite, or you must rewrite, paraphrase, and cite. Any instance of plagiarism can amount to dramatic repercussions, not excluding failing the class and even expulsion from the university. I always prefer evidence and quotes from course materials rather than outside sources, except in occasions when I ask specifically for outside sources, and there are a few times I will. I will enable anti-plagiarism software on all of your assignments, which will check your work against other UH students, student paper databases worldwide, and across public sites across the internet. Should the software flag student writing, I will initiate an investigation. Note, if you're a student with a documented disability, and I'll come out right now and tell you, I'm dyslexic, and that's been difficult for me in my life, but I managed to be relatively successful. And about a year ago, I got a diagnosis of ADHD and began taking medicine for it, and it has completely changed my life. So if you're coming from a perspective of being neuroatypical, I know where you're coming from. I'll work with you. If you have an IEP, make sure you send it to me. I will work with you on this. And I have a lot of background working in secondary education. I was a high school English teacher. I've done a lot of student teaching. In fact, or not student teaching, a lot of substitute teaching. I do it when I don't have a lot of classes. And I just kind of feel like I need to be in the classroom to kind of get the feel of it if I'm teaching too much online. And I tend to do a lot in special ed. So I'm pretty clued in to how this works. All right. So if you need to discuss a special academic accommodation, contact me during my office hours at the beginning of the course. So just contact me. If you're an ESL student, English as a second language, discuss that with me right away. If you do not self-advocate, I cannot help you. I take these accommodations very seriously, and I will do my best to help you. Understand that I understand the hardships of writing in a foreign language, since my own work involves learning several archaic Asian languages. Okay, there's all the university stuff that are required for me to put in here. Let's go really quick over what's going on in the course, our main topics, and then I'll let you go for the day. So we're going to start doing pre-modern Hinduism. And for our first 2 weeks, we're going to be thinking about what is religious studies and in general, what is Hinduism. You're going to have on your next class this week, it's called the Big 25. And it's kind of a long lecture where I just list all of these things that are Hinduism, and you'll say to yourself, this is a lot. Hinduism is a lot. It's so much more than I initially thought. Right, then we're going to talk about the nature of religious studies, and then we're going to move right in to look at the Vedas and Vedic ritual. These are some of the earliest scriptures in human languages, and there's some of the earliest scriptures in Hinduism. We're actually going to do 2 weeks on them, which is kind of great because often this isn't even taught in Hinduism courses. However, you'll notice if you hang around in Hindu worlds, you'll hear people talking about the Vedas this, the Veda that, the Veda this, what is Vedic, what is not Vedic. And usually they're not actually talking about these scriptures in these very old forms of Hindu religion. It's pretty cool stuff. Then we're going to move into the big times. This is everybody's favorite section. We're going to do the epics. So I'm going to do 1 day on the Ramayana, and you're going to hear me talk smack about Rama, because I don't like Rama. I just don't. It's rough. I struggle with it. We have a colleague who's my writing partner, Dr. Borkataki Varma, and I called her up one time like, oh, I can't teach the Ramayana without saying Rama's an ass. And she's like, that's what I tell my students all the time. He's an ass. So I have some conflicting problems with the Ramayana, but it's a wonderful work of scripture. All right, then we're going to do the Mahabharata. We're going to read a really wonderful translation, start to finish. We're going to go through the whole thing. It's going to be great. You're also going to watch a film adaptation of it. It's excellent. Then we're going to go into looking at the early forms of yoga, which is predominantly meditative, doesn't have anything to do with body positions or very little. Then we're going to talk about some gods. We're going to talk about goddesses. We're going to talk about the various types of Vishnu. We're going to also talk about the various types of Shiva. Then we're going to move in to talk about Tantra and what Tantra actually is, which is a very rigorous hyper-ritual system and philosophy, as opposed to, I don't know, kinky sex Hindu style, which is just so terribly offensive. And we're going to watch a video about Western conceptions of tantric sex that are just 100% bullshit. Okay, and then we're going to go into actually my main field, which is magic, and we're going to have a lecture on magic, effectively black magic in medieval India. And we're going to talk about bhakti or devotion and the types of devotional practices Hindus have towards deities. Then we're going to talk about hatha yoga. We're going to talk about the different yogis who practice a somaticized or a bodily acted out form of yoga. We're getting close to what modern postural yoga looks like, but it's still not modern postural yoga. Then we're going to move into the second part that will be ethnographic. So here we're going to do a full week on death and death rituals, which is really fun. And we're going to talk about possession. We're going to talk about both hostile or malevolent possession and then benevolent possession, where people are delightfully inhabited by deities for good things, not for bad. Okay, then we're going to talk about temples and temple worships. Then we're going to talk about Islam and Hinduism and look at two very distinctly different situations where Hindus and Muslims interact. And finally, we're going to end by talking about charismatic gurus and new religious movements in Hinduism. And that'll be at the end of the class. And you'll write a take-home final, and that'll be it. All right, so I am looking forward to getting to know you all through your writing and through this class. And I hope we all have a really good semester. I wish you the best of luck and most auspicious beginnings on all things. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. A quick bowing to Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, who is the one that says hello to us on all of our journeys. He's the god of doorways, opening and closings, the god of beginnings and endings, but he's always, when you go to a temple, you worship Ganesha first, even before the main god in the temple, because Ganesha is the Lord of beginnings, and he will bid you on your way in an auspicious manner. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. All right, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.